Are you powerless over drugs and alcohol? Have they ever controlled your life? Have you ever used more than you planned? Have you ever done things while drinking or drugging that you didn't want to do? Have you ever thought about the need to give them up entirely? These topics and others will be discussed and considered as you watch this video.
Hi there, my name is Slick. I'm that voice in your head that gives you all the good reasons to keep using drugs and alcohol no matter what little problems they cause. This video is about powerlessness. Powerlessness is the idea that drugs and alcohol sooner or later can take control of your life. They make you do things that you might not want to do, or make you take more than you might want to take. Some people think powerlessness is bad. I think it's good. Let's listen to how some people describe how they became powerless in their lives. And remember, it's a good thing, not bad.
Well, powerless means to me not being in control of your life, basically. And it seems like the first time I tried alcohol, that's when the powerlessness began. And it seemed, for me anyway, it just escalated and escalated. In other words, I started out drinking wine when I was young, then beer, then whiskey, then I went to marijuana, then speed, then barbiturates, and eventually it escalated all the way to heroin use and anything else I could get my hands on until I was completely powerless against drugs and alcohol.
Powerlessness was inability to say no, to stop using, thinking that I could have one drink or one smoke and not continue on into the night, but that didn't work. Once I started, I couldn't stop.
Many times, I happened to work in bars at the time of my heaviest use. And many times, because there's alcohol everywhere and because there's drugs everywhere, many times I thought, this is not healthy. I knew what I was doing wasn't healthy, and it wasn't certainly helping my marriage, and it wasn't helping any part of my life. So I thought, well, I can continue to work in this environment and just wean myself off drugs and just not do so much. And continuously, over and over and over, it did just the opposite. The more I tried to take control of that, the worse it got. Again, showing that not only did I not have control over the situation, but it was perpetually getting worse every time I tried to take control of it. So it did the opposite of what I thought it would do.
Yes, it's true. Powerlessness is progressive. The longer you use drugs and alcohol, the more you lose control over time. But that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because that just means you're using more drugs and alcohol. Some of you get concerned because when you use drugs and alcohol, you violate your values. Maybe you steal, maybe you drink and drive, maybe you yell at people you love. But I can really help over time remove the guilt by giving you good reasons to explain why you did the things that you don't want to do.
Well, the very examples of doing things I said I would never do would certainly indicate powerlessness. Driving while drunk, driving with children or other loved ones in the car, or compromising values with relationships, compromising business morals, business values, was certainly impacted by my drinking.
I guess the best way for me to explain how I felt powerless is just to give you an example of the time that sticks in my head the most. And I have two children, an 11-year-old and a 5-year-old. And at the time they were 2 and 8. And I was in a house cooking meth, looking out the window, watching my kids play at my parents' house. And everything inside me wanted to put down the dope and walk out and be a mom. Everything inside me wanted to do that, but I couldn't. And that was the point that I knew that I was powerless. And that's when I think about powerlessness, that's what comes into my mind.
As far as powerlessness goes, I was adamant against using narcotics of any kind. And even though some friends of mine were, and they tried to get me involved in that. And yet, eventually got to the point where the drugs I was using weren't potent enough. I wasn't getting high enough, and I wanted to take it to the next level. And heroin, of course, was the next step. So that's when I got involved in narcotics use.
You know, this guy felt guilty just because he used heroin. You know, heroin comes from the poppy plant, and it's natural. God gave it to us. So there's nothing wrong with using heroin. I mean, when you eat a poppy seed bagel, it's kind of like taking heroin. So what's the big deal? Let's talk for a second about denial. I love denial. I love helping you deny that you have a problem, helping you deny you're powerless. Why? Because if you admit you're powerless, you're going to want to stop using drugs and alcohol, and that would be bad.
Yeah, throughout life, being young, you grow up, and being a man, you think that everybody else is drinking and using. It's a normal part of life, and that if you would drink and have a problem, maybe DWI or driving with open bottoming or a fight or something related to alcohol or drugs, that that's just one time. That's just one time, and well, everybody's doing it. 80% of the population. But, so you continually deny the fact that you have a problem and that maybe you can't control it.
Most addicts and alcoholics need to be in control of their day-to-day lives. And the fact that someone who is otherwise a control freak in many other areas of their life makes it very difficult to say, I can't stop drinking, I can't stop using. And the admission of that fact of being powerless is very difficult for those of us who are attempting to be in control of our lives to really acknowledge.
I think it's difficult to admit that you're powerless, as an addict especially, because you're showing the world and telling yourself that you are out of control and that you can't handle life. And life is supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be, you wake up at this time, you go to work, you make this amount of money, you have 2.5 kids, everything's perfect. Well, it's not. And by saying, I'm out of control, I need help, you're showing everybody you're weak. And that's not okay in today's society, to be weak. And to admit that, yes, I'm weak over here, I need help. That's not okay.
I love proud people. I love people who feel like they're independent and in control and don't need help. That way, I can keep them using as long as I like. And there's a variety of other ways that I will help people deny that they are powerless, help people deny that they need help, help people deny that they need to stop using drugs and alcohol.
Slick would say anything to keep me going. Slick would say, you are a good father, because I had 2 different lives, okay? So Slick, on one hand, I would be at home and thinking I was doing a good job, and Slick would tell me, say, you know what, when you're at home, you're a great dad, and you're a great husband, and that part of your life, you're great. And you know what? You deserve a little. You work hard all the time. You deserve a little fun here and there, and it's not affecting your marriage or your family life at all, or yourself. That I could differentiate between the 2 lives. I had 2 separate lives, literally 2 separate lives. And on the one hand, Slick would say, you deserve that. Have a little fun. You can handle it. It's no big deal. And then I would go home to that and say, see, you're still a good dad. And he made me believe that, in fact, I was a good dad, I was a good husband, and that wasn't the case at all.
Slick would tell me every time that I would try to stop that I needed to be high, that I He would tell me that I was prettier, that I would eat too much if I quit and I'd get fat, and that I had more of an outgoing personality and I was more fun to be around, and that I had more friends. Slick would tell me that I was a better person when I was high.
Slick helped me to deny my powerlessness by making me feel like I was powerful, by giving me, I made drugs, I sold drugs, I had money, I had all these things, I had a house, I had cars, and anything that I wanted, I had. And convincing me that that's who I was, that that's who I was born to be. I was born to be a dope dealer and a dope maker, and that I was good at it.
Slick, I think, had me in his claws so deeply and so strongly that I think I knew I was powerless, and it got to the point where I just didn't care anymore, where I just walked away from anything spiritual, and I started just running with him full time, and it got to the point where I was literally on a suicide mission. I just didn't care if I lived or died anymore, and did a lot of stupid things, took my life into my own hands several times, things involving guns and motorcycles and crazy risks that it's by God's grace that I'm here at all, but I just didn't care anymore at all.
I really like it when people get to that point where they're willing to take crazy risks and just do anything they want. That gives me free reign in their lives, and that's just the way I like it. But I'll tell you what really bugs me is when people, for some stupid reason, decide to give up drugs and alcohol. They get scared or tired, or they're quitters, they just quit. I hate that. This next section is going to talk about what got people to the point where they decided to give up drugs and alcohol. It's a bad section. Don't listen.
The thing that made me decide to give up using was being forced to look at the fact that I was not going to have a chance to be a mother to my children. That I had to sing "You Are My Sunshine" to my 2-year-old over the phone for 8 months, and that's the only contact I had with him. To see my 8-year-old at the time through glass only 2 times during that period. Also, my best friend of 15 years overdosed, and I knew sitting in that cell that I was meant to do something with my life. My life was there was supposed to be something good in my life, and meth was always going to smother that flame that I had inside of me.
What got me to stop using was the point that I was so low that found myself always hurting and always feeling guilty about what I was doing to my son, what I was doing to my family, because none of my siblings do drugs. And I just began to take a look at myself. And I think it was the voice of God calling me. And one night I woke up in the middle of the night, sat up in the bed, and it was almost like it was a flashback of my life, what I had done. And
The reason why I stopped using chemicals wasn't really by my own choice. It was more of everyone else around me that told me I had a problem. And again, Slick was telling me that I didn't have a problem, but I went to treatment pretty much for everyone else around me, not for myself. But while I was in treatment, then I found God and I found recovery.
Personally, I don't like it when anybody decides to quit. But it really, really bugs me when young people decide to quit way before their time, way before they've had a lot of bad consequences. Sure, if you're a low-bottom addict and you've had a lot of major life problems, it makes a little bit of sense to stop. If you're young and you've had just a few problems and you're nothing like these other people that have had a lot of problems, there's no reason to stop. Just keep using until your life is as bad as theirs.
What made me to decide to stop using was my wife and I were separated. And I basically was unemployed. My children wouldn't see me. And my wife was in treatment, and I felt the Lord tell me that if I wanted her and my family back, that I needed to stop. And I threw everything away. I took everything to the dumpster instead of giving it to my friends to hold on to. I threw the pornography and drug paraphernalia away, and went and got my wife out of treatment, and we started our life over.
What made me decide to stop was I had just gotten tired. I had gotten to a point where I would sell anything in my home. I didn't want to feed my children. My concern was me. Everything was about me. It was what I wanted, what I desired. And so I just got to the point where I realized that I had really hit rock bottom, and I got tired. I got tired of being in that lifestyle and just everything being about me. And I knew something wasn't right with that.
It's an old saying, but I was really sick and tired of being sick and tired. My business life seemed to be going relatively smooth, and success came somewhat easy for me from a business perspective, but my personal life was screwed up. And I had ruined 2 marriages already, and I was about to ruin a third. And this is a woman who loved me more than any person ever should, because of some of the things that I did to her. And certainly she was the woman that I knew was the right person for me, and I was about to ruin all the relationships that were important to me.
So can you admit you're powerless? Can you admit your drugs and alcohol have controlled your life? Can you admit that your life would be better if you quit? Are you ready to quit now? To get more information about this topic and other topics related to your recovery, go to slickrecovery.com.